Today, I've got something really special. 10 real-world Docker projects that you can build in a weekend with that project-based learning. And these are actually projects that you can use. And with these projects, you're going to be able to level up your self-hosting game. So what are these projects? What can you use them for? And how do you spin them up? Let's dive in and take a look. The first project that I want to highlight is Gitea. Gitea is a self-hosted Git repository. And if you are wanting to get into DevOps, start learning infrastructure as code, one of the best things that you can do is spin up a self-hosted Git repository. And Gitea is an extremely lightweight, easy to spin up, GitHub-like repository. In fact, it's eerily similar to GitHub, and you can run it in a container, and it allows you to do some really amazing things. Let's take a look at the Docker Compose code to spin up Gitea. I have simple Docker Compose code here that we're going to just briefly take a look at. This is how you can easily spin up a Gitea instance. So I've got the services here. We've got Gitea itself. We've got the Gitea database connection or service container. And then finally, I've got a Gitea runner. Now, you don't have to put all of this in the same Docker Compose code. However, I'm just showing you this, that you can treat this as a stack, which I encourage you to learn about and to do this, because this actually makes things easier, makes it intuitive, and you can spin your containers up in lockstep. And also what I like about this, as you see here, this configuration statement depends on the Gitea database. So if you spin this up as a stack with your Docker Compose code, this will make sure that this service is spun up so that your Gitea instance can already talk to the database. So that's what I really like about Docker Compose and running your containers this way. Now, all of these are variables that we would house inside of a .env file for environment variable file. And once you create that, then your Docker Compose code is going to read from that file for all of the sensitive things that you see here, secret key, passwords for your database, and other things that you wouldn't want to expose inside of your Docker Compose code. So definitely keep that in mind when you're spinning this up. Could you hard code those here? Absolutely. However, that is not best practice, and you'll want to learn to do things the right way. So I encourage you to do that. Next up is Netdata. Now, if you're like me, you love to monitor your home lab, various things that you're running for your production workloads. And so monitoring, keeping visibility on those things is extremely important. Netdata is a solution that is really unbelievably easy to spin up. It's super lightweight with a cloud dashboard. And one of the cool things I really like about Netdata is they also have a home lab license for $90 a year, which is extremely reasonable, allowing you to spin up unlimited hosts or endpoints to monitor in your home lab. And this includes Docker containers, Kubernetes clusters, your Proxmox hosts, web services, you name it. Netdata can probably monitor it. So let's take a quick look at Netdata and how you can get it configured. Netdata is a really fantastic tool, and I just want to show you just briefly how you can quickly onboard into Netdata. And what I like about it is the cloud dashboard, so you don't have to support the backend infrastructure to actually run your monitoring framework. Once you have an account spun up in Netdata, you simply just go to your Nodes tab, and then you'll notice this Add Nodes button. Once you click the Add Nodes button, it basically gives you all of the commands for each environment that you could use to spin up and have monitoring with your Netdata cloud dashboard. But between these four, I think that'll cover what most will do in the home lab, but super easy. For a Docker container host, you can see you can just simply spin up a new Docker container that already has your room ID as well as your secret key or something of the sort that they use to tie that together. And so when you run the command that they feed to you off of this screen, then it will show up in the dashboard in just a couple of minutes. Next up is Nginx Proxy Manager. If you start getting into Docker containers, hard and heavy, you're going to want to be able to have SSL termination and use something like Let's Encrypt certificates to secure all of those web interfaces that you're spinning up in your Docker containers. Nginx Proxy Manager is an extremely cool project that allows you to do that and do that very simply with a web interface, which is what many of the other proxies are missing. So I think this is a great project to start learning SSL termination in your Docker container environments. Let's see just how easy Nginx Proxy Manager is to stand up. So the Nginx Proxy Manager Docker Compose code, we're just simply instantiating the Nginx Proxy Manager container itself, and we can see the image there. Also, we've got the ports, which I would suggest you lock these down once you get things configured as you want it. One of the first things I normally do is remove this port 80 so that you don't have the clear text logins and that kind of thing. However, you'll want to set yourself up a proxy host for your Nginx Proxy Manager itself. Now, also we got the environment here, which depends on, as we can see here, with a depends on statement for our Nginx Proxy Manager DB. And so we're using MariaDB for that. And then we're setting, of course, just a temporary root password, database user password. You'll want to set these or use an environment file for that, which is definitely what I would recommend. However, fairly straightforward. Next up is Bitwarden. Bitwarden is a self-hosted password manager. And when it comes to storing your sensitive data, many are wanting to pull that back into their own storage environment, something that they manage and control, instead of putting your sensitive data out in someone else's cloud. And realistically, who knows who has access to that data or when they attempt to access it. Storing your data locally in your own self-hosted environment is one of the only ways to really know for sure who and what has access to your sensitive data. So you can learn more about Bitwarden at bitwarden.com, and they've got a lot of really nice resources here that you can take a look at as in regards to the solution's features and capabilities. Now, one thing I want to highlight is the new unified deployment, and I've got a blog post on this that I'll leave in the description for this video as well. That'll give you a really good walkthrough of this unified deployment, but they have tried to make this a lot easier. Used to, it was mini containers and sidecar containers and all kinds of things that was fairly complicated to get everything configured as you want it to run the solution. But they've got this new unified configuration that really makes it a lot easier. So they've tried to consolidate a lot of that down, and then all you have to do is populate this env file that it uses when you spin up the containers. And they actually have a decent Docker Compose example on this unified documentation, and you can see it's fairly straightforward. Depends on, it's got a DB element to it, and then basically some Docker volumes that you spin up to store the data. Next up is Watchtower. Watchtower is an automated container update platform. And Watchtower is one of those really cool projects that allows you to keep everything fresh and updated in your Docker container environment. How do you keep those updated to the latest version so that you can keep vulnerabilities patched and other issues with newer releases? So how do you keep all of those containers updated with the newest container images and making sure that all those security vulnerabilities that may be patched with the newest releases are rolled out in your environment? And that's where Watchtower comes into play. It runs as a container itself in your container environment, and you can schedule Watchtower to go out daily or many times a day, look for new images, and if a new image is found, it will stop the container, pull the new image, respin the container with all of the same configuration options with the newest container image. So you get where this is going. It's a super cool way to automate that entire process and take all the heavy lifting out so that you always have the latest container images to work with. Let's see how to spin up Watchtower and some of those configuration options. So spinning up Watchtower is very easy. They've actually got a quick start Docker Compose and Docker Run example on the website, which is container with 3rs.dev/Watchtower. So you can take a look at this quick start. They've got a really good introduction, and then I think it's in the arguments section that they give you quite a bit of example Docker Compose code that you can add many of these options. So you're just simply going to add these into your Docker Compose code. So you can notify to legacy notification systems like an SMTP relay. You can notify to more modern API-based notification solutions, like you can integrate with Slack, Microsoft Teams, Godify, and many others. Dozzle is a new project that I just got my hands on not too long ago. I think Tom Lawrence did a really great overview video on Dozzle. Dozzle is a quick way to get container log viewing enabled for all of your containers in a very slick web UI. So if you're troubleshooting an issue, looking for various information, what have you, then Dozzle is a great way to go through all of your container logging and find what you're looking for. Let's see just how easy Dozzle is to spin up. So the official website is just simply dozzle.dev, and you'll get a lot of really great information here. You can see the supported platforms are not just a single standalone Docker host, but you can do Docker Swarm, Kubernetes, and even Podman. So this is not just a Docker logging solution. So a lot of value there, especially if you're playing around with any of these other types of containerized solutions. To get started and see some examples, you'll notice the View on GitHub button off of the official website. So if we scroll down, they've actually got a really good documentation section here about how to get started, and it's super simple. Just a single line of code here. If you want to do Docker run, you're just simply pulling the official Docker image. But also they've got the Docker Compose file example here. So same thing, we've got the container image, and then you're just simply telling it which ports that you want to run on. And then they've got swarm mode, of course, agents, how you get those deployed, as well as Podman. And number 7 on the list is Portainer. Portainer is what I think is the best GUI management for Docker. And again, there are many other great ones out there. Komodo is one that's certainly coming on to the scene, gaining more and more really great features. But I think none are as slick, as fully featured, and as easy to use as Portainer. It's one of those tools that once you use it, how do you not use it any longer? It's just a de facto tool that in the home lab or production environments makes tons of sense. They do actually give you a 3-node license, a business license, for free. So you get, if you only have 3 Docker hosts, you can certainly run the business edition of Portainer at no cost. However, they also have a home lab and student license, I think for $100 a year, $115 a year, which again, it's like Netdata. I think it's one of those tools that is definitely worth spending that money on. And Portainer allows you to visually manage your Docker stacks, your Docker Swarm clusters, your Kubernetes clusters. So it's not just a Docker container tool. It's like a Swiss Army knife tool that allows you to manage all of these containerized environments in a way that just literally makes it easy. And one of the things I really like about it, as of recent releases, they have added many GitOps features to Portainer. And I think I saw in one of the STS releases, as of recently, they are adding in alerting. And that's something I've really been keen to see in the Portainer solution for quite some time. So really exciting to see that. Let's see how easy it is to spin up Portainer. Takes no time at all, but you're going to thank yourself for having this tool in the lab. So if you just navigate to portainer.io, you're going to land on the official Portainer website. And I really like their redesign that they've done and went through as of recently, and they're updating the tool itself. But if you navigate to resources and install, then you're going to be able to have the examples that they have from the official documentation. You know, we've got Business Edition and we've got Community Edition. Now, I really like the Business Edition. It has a lot of the GitOpsy features that I really like to take advantage of inside the home lab, and a few other things that you will appreciate once you get familiar with it. And remember, they've got the 3-node solution as well for totally free. So if I just click on Business Edition, the installation process for Business Edition as well as Community Edition is identical. It's just pulling different container images. And then if you notice, we've got set up a new Portainer BE server installation. If you click that, then you've got all of the environments that most will likely want to install in: Docker standalone, Swarm, Podman, and Kubernetes. So if I just click standalone, then we've got choices: install Portainer with Docker on Linux, WSL, or Windows Container Service. So I'm going to click Docker on Linux, and then we scroll down, and here we have the example deployment commands. So you're going to create a Docker volume, and then once that Docker volume is created, of course, we're just simply going to Docker run, tell it the ports, and we've also got a restart policy, our Docker socket, and then our volume here. So super easy. And of course, you can transform this into Docker Compose code as well. Next up is OpenWebUI and Ollama for self-hosted AI assistants. If you're running something like Proxmox, you can easily spin up OpenWebUI and Ollama inside LXC containers. And with these solutions, you can build your own ChatGPT-like assistant. And honestly, I like the OpenWebUI GUI better in many ways than I do ChatGPT. Ollama is like the backend GPU platform that allows you to interact with these LLMs that you can download from Hugging Face or other sources. And both of these work seamlessly together to allow you to self-host your own AI solution at home. So again, you're not paying API costs. Your data is not leaving your home network and being stored in an AI provider's cloud. So lots of privacy and data security benefits to self-hosting those AI solutions. Let's see just how easy it is to stand the stack up to self-host your own AI solution. It's super easy and a quick start way to get started with OpenWebUI. On their official documentation page, you can see step one is pull the OpenWebUI image. We can do a Docker pull here and you see the image. However, we can also include step one in step two if we just do a Docker run -d and our port is 3000, and then point it to the same container that we've got here, and that will stand up your OpenWebUI container. And then you're simply just going to navigate to port 3000. Now, in terms of Ollama, this is also super simple as well. You can pass through NVIDIA GPUs using Docker and just simply do a Docker run -d, and then that --GPUs equals all. And then, of course, our volume that we're wanting to pass along, as well as this official port, and that is standard at 11434 for Ollama. And then once you stand that up, you're simply just going to connect your OpenWebUI container with this Ollama instance. Number 9 is HomeAssistant, and HomeAssistant is certainly a household name when it comes to smart home devices and other things. HomeAssistant is kind of, again, one of those Swiss Army knife tools that not only does smart home things, but you can build really cool dashboards with it. I think Techno Tim had a really nice overview video of that functionality. We don't really think about HomeAssistant in that way. However, it can be used for that. But if you are at all wanting to get into smart home configurations and doing those types of things at your house, there is no substitute for HomeAssistant. And there are other platforms out there, but by and large, you're going to see the best integration across vendors and many different solutions with HomeAssistant. Let's see just how easy it is to stand up in a Docker container. I do want to call out the official documentation for HomeAssistant, as there are some considerations that you might want to or need to think about when running HomeAssistant inside a container. And they basically lay this out for you. So you can take a look at the installation methods. Basically, there is a HomeAssistant OS that you can download as a virtual appliance. So think virtual machine, like a full-on VM, or you can run this in a container. Now, containers do have a few limitations when it comes to HomeAssistant. One of the things that you really have to think about with a containerized installation is networking. So like how devices are discovered and integrations, those types of things. And so with that, definitely check out the HomeAssistant Getting Started and Installation Guide, as it will help you to kind of work through that and make some of those decisions. However, standing it up in a container is very straightforward. Like any other containerized solution, you're just simply going to pull the container image down and then stand up the container either with the Docker run command or with Docker compose. And finally on the list is a new solution, at least in my home lab. It's N8N. And N8N is a workflow automation tool. And these things are just exploding onto the scene, but N8N is one that has certainly seen quite a bit of fanfare. Many are starting to realize about it, what it can do. And these workflow automation platforms can now, especially with AI and AI agents, do some amazing things. You can build workflows that absolutely can save hours, if not days, of different tasks that you can farm out to AI or other workflows that you can build right in N8N. And it's super easy to spin up. They have a community edition that is totally free of charge, and you can self-host that like I am doing in Home Lab. Let me show you just how easy N8N is to spin up. N8N has on their documentation page a Docker installation KB, and it goes through in detail things to think about, prerequisites, and so on and so forth. However, when you get down to the starting N8N section, you're going to see the commands that you can run. So you can create a volume, call that volume anything you want, and then of course we've got our Docker run command. You can add a PostgreSQL database, and they give you an example of a Docker run command to add Postgres. So very straightforward and easy to get this automation solution stood up. So there you have it. There are 10 Docker-powered projects to build and use, not just toy around with. These are actually projects that I think can bring super value to your home lab environment. Now, which one would you pick first? Are there projects that did not make my list, at least in this video, that you would highly recommend? Do let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe for more hands-on home lab content, and hit the bell to stay notified. Well, I really appreciate you watching this video. Appreciate your support of the channel as always. Do stay safe out there, keep on home labbing, and I will see you in the next video.